Burt Lancaster was the most good-looking man in Hollywood. And now that he was 86 years old, Burt decided that keeping secrets was silly and didn't make sense anymore. The stage was all set up, the cameras were rolling, and a TV interviewer sat across from the famous silver-haired star, looking very excited. And Burt, who still had that amazing smile even after so many years, leaned back in his chair and did something totally unexpected. He started talking about the ladies. 7 famous actresses specifically. 7 ladies who had seen a side of Burt Lancaster that the movie studios never let the public see. 7 names that would make Hollywood go crazy with excitement. Because Burt Lancaster, the big movie king, the man who made doing cool jumps and being super manly into a type of art, had finally chosen it was time to tell the real truth. The room became super quiet. Even the cameramen looked like they stopped breathing because this was not the clean, polite version of Hollywood history they thought they were going to get. This was the real Burt, the man underneath the famous movie star picture, the boyfriend underneath the big legend. The first name came out like a secret confession whispered in a dark movie theater. "Ava Gardner," he said, and his eyes looked far away as he remembered, going back many years to a time when Hollywood shone brighter than it ever would again. That woman was like pure electricity wrapped up in a pretty white dress, a strong natural power disguised as a movie star. People saw how glamorous and beautiful she was, how perfect her face shape was, captured by every camera that ever pointed at her. But what they didn't see was the way she laughed with her whole body, the way her eyes sparkled with fun when she thought something was funny. The way she made every single moment feel important, like you were the only person in the world who understood her. Working with Ava wasn't just about filming movies. It was about a special feeling between them that could not be created or pretended, no matter how good you were at acting or how many times the director asked you to film the scene again. Everyone had noticed their connection on screen, and people whispered about it in gossip papers and at fancy studio parties while drinking martinis and smoking. But nobody knew the real truth. The truth was that what they had when the cameras were off was even more exciting than anything the directors ever filmed. More real, more powerful, more risky. Ava had this way of moving around a room that made the air itself seem full of excitement and possibilities. When she looked at you, it felt like being the only person in the world, like everyone else had simply disappeared. When she smiled, it felt like winning something special, something that could never be taken away. They stole secret moments between filming, hidden times in dark hallways and empty dressing rooms, in the back of fancy cars, in hotel rooms rented with fake names. Ava was smart, very passionate, and cultured in ways that surprised people who only thought of her as a beautiful face. She was a woman who knew exactly what she wanted and took it without being sorry or explaining anything. With her, there were no fake feelings, no Hollywood tricks, no games, just 2 people who recognized something in each other that went deeper than liking each other, deeper than just the physical, deeper than fame and money, and all the surface stuff that usually mattered in that world. The second name followed more easily, like a big door had truly opened now. "Rita Hayworth," he said, and his voice sounded very gentle, which suggested memories he had kept secret for 60 whole years. Rita was something completely different. If Ava was like electricity, Rita was like pure temptation, wrapped up in a hair flip and a knowing smile. But there was always something fragile underneath that tempting look. But beneath all that sexiness was a woman who was very, very lonely, who carried hurts that no amount of spotlight could fix, no matter how many times she danced on screen. Rita had this sensitive side that looked so pretty next to her public image of being untouchable, of being the love goddess of the screen, the woman every man wanted in private, away from the cameras and the studio bosses who controlled her whole life like puppy masters with endless power. Rita was looking for something real, something true, something that wasn't carefully planned or practiced. And for a short, shiny time, she found it with Burt. Their relationship had been passionate, sometimes full of fighting, built on a true connection, but made hard by the stress of being two of Hollywood's biggest stars, by the demands of a system that wanted to own them completely. Rita had this way of needing to be needed, of wanting proof of worth from the men in her life in a way that made her both sensitive and incredibly attractive. And Burt had needed her in ways that went beyond just physical attraction, beyond the clear chemistry between them. They would spend nights talking about their dreams, their fears, the way the movie business chewed people up and spit them out, the way it demanded everything and gave back only empty applause. Rita was artistic, smart, very sensitive to the chaos and unkindness around her, and she needed someone who could understand that sensitive side. When she let her guard down, she was capable of a kind of love that took over everything, that demanded the same strong feelings back. She gave everything when she gave it all, held nothing back, threw her whole heart into the fire. Their time together had taught him something about caring, about understanding the heavy weight of fame, and how it could crush someone beautiful from the inside out. The third name brought a deeper smile, one that suggested memories still warm and bright. That time hadn't faded at all. "Sophia Loren," he said with clear respect, the kind of respect usually saved for very holy experiences. Now that woman represented something different entirely from the American actresses he'd known. If Rita was sensitive and Ava was electric, Sophia was pure class and sexiness combined in a way that couldn't be easily described, that went beyond the normal definitions of movie star glamour. She was Italian elegance, European sophistication, and raw animal magnetism, all rolled into one stunning package that made men lose their ability to think clearly. When Sophia walked into a room, it wasn't just heads that turned. The whole atmosphere shifted, changed, transformed into something different just because of her being there alone. Burt had met her while filming in another country, and their connection had been immediate and super strong, like something that had been written in the stars long before they ever actually met. Sophia carried herself with a confidence that came from knowing exactly how beautiful she was, how much power that beauty gave her, but not letting it define her or limit her identity to something shallow. She had substance, intelligence, depth, a sense of humor that surprised him every single time and made him appreciate her in ways that went beyond just the physical look. Their affair had been short but intense, stolen moments in European hotel rooms where they could be nobody but themselves, where the American studios couldn't reach them, where they were free. She taught him about passion with a European flair, about taking your time, about enjoying every moment, about understanding that temptation was an art form that required patience and skill. With Sophia, every touch felt planned, deliberate, like she was communicating something important without words. Every moment felt like it had been carefully arranged, choreographed, like one of her films. She made him feel like the most desired man in the world, like no other woman had ever existed before her. And she did it with a grace and elegance that never felt fake or like a performance. The fourth name came with a big smile that suggested fun trouble and true affection mixed together equally. "Audrey Hepburn," he said, and the room nearly gasped as if they were all shocked that he would share this specific secret. Audrey was different from the others in almost every way, stood apart from them like a different type of beautiful. Where the others showed raw sexiness and passionate connection, Audrey represented something close to gentleness, something softer, but somehow deeper and more important. She was pure elegance, a ballet dancer's grace trapped in a Hollywood actress's body, moving through the world with a balance that seemed natural rather than learned. Working with her had changed something in him. made him aware that attraction could exist alongside true respect and admiration without making either one smaller. Audrey had this shining quality that had nothing to do with makeup or costumes, nothing to do with studio lighting or the technical parts of making movies. It was something that shone from inside her, from her very soul, a light that couldn't be manufactured or faked. She was kind in a way that seemed almost revolutionary in the tough world of Hollywood, where kindness was often mistaken for weakness. She was thoughtful, considerate, smart, a woman who paid attention to people in ways that most celebrities never bothered with, who actually listened when you spoke instead of just waiting for you to finish so they could talk about themselves. Their relationship had been about thinking as much as it was physical, maybe even more so. They'd spent hours discussing big ideas, art, the meaning of beauty, and why everyone seemed so obsessed with capturing it on film, what it meant to be beautiful, and whether beauty was a good thing or a curse. Audrey brought out the thoughtful side of Burt, the side that liked to think deeply, made him want to be a better man, made him believe that maybe underneath all the muscles and the Vi-star picture and the acrobatic skill, there was actually a soul worth saving, worth developing, worth investing time in. The fifth name arrived with a laugh, one mixed with the kind of affection that comes from true friendship mixed with huge chemistry and liking each other a lot. "Joan Crawford," he said, and suddenly the room filled with new energy, a different kind of excitement than what the previous names had created. Now, that was a woman who knew how to control a room, who understood that power was something you took rather than something given to you by others. Joan wasn't about being subtle or tempting through softness or playing games. She was about raw power, about knowing exactly what she wanted and moving heaven and earth to get it without stopping or second-guessing. She was one of the last of the old-school Hollywood stars, someone who understood that being a star meant way more than just looking good on screen in the right light. It meant presence, control, intelligence, cleverness, and an iron will wrapped in a beautiful package that could destroy or create depending on her mood. Joan had taken what she wanted from Burt without saying sorry and without asking permission, and he'd respected her hugely for it. She didn't need him to make her feel complete or validated or worthy of love. She wanted him specifically for the passion and the physical fun, and the way they challenged each other both at work and in their lives, sparking off each other like two stones creating fire. Joan was smart, very driven, ambitious, sometimes ruthless in pursuit of what she believed in and what she desired. Their time together had been exciting, a crash of two huge personalities who understood the power games of desire and attraction better than almost anyone else in their world. She taught him that women could be powerful without being soft, that they could take pleasure without shame or guilt, that strength and sexiness weren't separate things, but actually went together. Joan Crawford had shown him a side of female sexuality that was bold and unapologetic, that demanded recognition and respect rather than asking for it politely. The sixth name came out with a softness that was very different from the Joan Crawford story, like moving from a thunderstorm to a gentle rain. "Grace Kelly," he said, and his voice dropped to something almost reverent, the tone of someone talking about something sacred and untouchable. Grace represented something entirely different from all the others, stood apart in her own category of beautiful and powerful. She was like a queen, literally, eventually becoming a princess, leaving Hollywood and movies behind to become royalty, which felt like exactly the right ending for someone who'd always carried herself with such natural grace. But before all that royal future, she was an actress of amazing talent and a woman of extraordinary complexity and hidden depths. Grace had this cool elegance about her that suggested untouchable perfection, suggested that she existed above and beyond the normal rules of human desire. And yet beneath that perfect outside was a woman who burned with desires and dreams that didn't fit into the neat boxes that society wanted to place her in, that demanded she stay frozen in a particular image. Their connection had been about thinking and deeply sensual, a meeting of minds that led to a meeting of bodies in ways that neither of them had quite expected or planned for. Grace brought sophistication to everything she did, including the way she loved, the way she touched, the way she gave herself over to a moment. She made him feel like a gentleman, made their connection feel like something rare and precious and slightly forbidden, like they were breaking a sacred rule just by acknowledging the attraction. They'd never been able to publicly say whatever existed between them because Grace's image was too carefully made up by the studios, too important to keep up, too valuable to risk on a scandal. But those stolen moments had been exciting and meaningful in ways that didn't need public proof or acknowledgement or anyone else's approval. She'd shown him that real passion didn't need an audience, that sometimes the most meaningful connections were the ones you kept entirely private. The seventh and final name hung in the air like the last note of a song, the highest point and end of his entire confession, the secret that would make everything else seem small in comparison. "Elizabeth Taylor," he said, and it felt like the room itself held its breath, like the whole world paused for just a moment. Elizabeth was intensity wrapped in violet eyes and huge ambition, a creature of pure will and passion contained in one impossibly beautiful form. She was a force of nature, someone who burned through the world like a bright star, leaving trails of light and sometimes destruction behind her, changing everyone she touched in basic ways. She was the most talented actress of her generation and the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. But more than that, infinitely more than that, she was a woman who refused to be held back by anyone or anything, who lived completely on her own terms. Working with Elizabeth had been like working with dynamite, unpredictable and thrilling and terrifying all at once. You never quite knew what would happen in any moment, but you knew absolutely that it would be memorable, that it would matter, that it would change you. She was passionate, smart, demanding, challenging, and completely uncompromising in her idea of herself and what she wanted from life and what she expected from the people she allowed into her world. Their affair had been wild and passionate and full of fighting, filled with moments of absolute perfection, followed by moments of absolute chaos, moments of joy followed by moments of sadness. Elizabeth made him feel alive in a way that no one else could, made his whole life feel bright and real and important, made him understand what it meant to be taken over by desire for another person. With Elizabeth, there was no halfway, no compromise, no settling for anything less than everything. It was all or nothing, and they both chose all with complete commitment and no looking back. She'd taught him that real connection wasn't safe, that sometimes the best things in life came with a price. That being completely open with another person was both terrifying and necessary. That you had to be willing to be hurt in order to truly connect with someone else. The room fell into deep silence as Burt sat back, the heavy weight of his confession settling over everything like dust. 7 names, 7 women, 7 secrets that had just rewritten the history of Hollywood. The interviewer struggled to find words. "Burt," he finally managed. "These are some of the biggest actresses of that time. Are you saying nobody knew?" Burt smiled. "That's the thing about the old Hollywood system," he said. "The studios controlled everything. They decided who could be seen with whom, what would be kept private. There were rules, and if you played by them, your secrets stayed secrets." He leaned forward. "But privacy actually meant something back then. People respected boundaries. You could just live, and what happened between you and another person could stay sacred, remain yours alone." The interviewer kept pushing, curiosity clearly burning through his professional calmness. "But surely there were rumors, guessing, with some of these partnerships being so documented professionally." Bert's laugh was quiet and knowing. "Oh, there were always rumors. he said. Hollywood runs on rumors as much as it runs on money and ego. People whispered about chemistry between actors all the time, but what they imagined was never quite the reality. The strong feelings I had for Ava, the complicated thing I shared with Rita, the thinking connection with Audrey, the raw power of my time with Elizabeth, Joan's refusal to be anything less than equal, Grace's forbidden elegance and Sophia's sensual sophistication. None of it could have been properly captured or understood by public guessing. He paused, his eyes distant with memory. Each of these women was remarkable in her own way. Each one taught me something different about desire, about passion, about what it meant to be truly connected to another human being. Ava taught me about electricity and recognition. Rita taught me about gentleness beneath the glamour. Sophia taught me about sexiness as an art form. Audrey taught me about respect and connecting through ideas. Joan taught me about power and equality. Grace taught me about the beauty of privacy, and Elizabeth taught me about all-consuming, world-shaking passion. His voice grew quieter, more thoughtful. People think they understand Hollywood, think they know the stories behind the scandals, but they don't know that behind closed doors, away from the cameras, these were just people, beautiful, talented, complex people trying to find genuine connection in a world that treated every part of their life like a product to be sold. They were women of substance and depth, not just the images shown on the movie screen. The interviewer leaned back, trying to take in the size of what had just been revealed. "Do you feel bad about keeping these relationships private?" Burt considered the question carefully before answering. "I feel bad about a lot of things," he finally said. "But keeping these moments sacred isn't one of them. Those women deserve that respect. They deserve to have parts of their lives that belonged only to them, that weren't analyzed or judged or turned into gossip fodder." In a world that demanded so much access to their public selves, I gave them the one thing that mattered, true privacy. He smiled again, that smile that had defined his entire career. And in doing so, I kept something precious for myself, too. These weren't headlines, they weren't scandals. Why were connections, real ones? And now I'm old enough and have little enough to lose to finally say that they mattered. All of them mattered, and maybe that's enough. The silence that followed was deep and respectful. The acknowledgement of a man who'd finally put down a heavy load he'd been carrying for decades. 7 names, 7 actresses, 7 connections that had shaped Burt Lancaster into the man he became. And now the world would know them, would understand that beneath the movie star picture was a man capable of genuine connection, real passion, and the kind of loyalty that comes from truly knowing another person. That's what real icons do. They live fully, love deeply, and when they're ready, they tell their stories without apology.